It disappeared. It disappeared. It disappeared. It disappeared. It disappeared. It disappeared. A fine, full, dignified beard.
During the broadcast, I was talking to Cameron. All right. He's on the screen and he was talking. And what happens when we're in these conversations, when there's somebody else on the show, whoever's talking loudest usually automatically gets the camera, which is why shit with CPN this way turns into a fucking shouting match. It's because you have to talk louder than the other person for the camera in Google to switch. Well, he was talking. And at one point in the middle of what he was saying, there was a fucking huge noise on my side. All right. And the camera actually cut to me. And I hadn't said anything, but I was looking over here at the wall of my apartment that I share with the neighbor next door. So what had happened was it sounded like a fucking body got thrown into the wall. And that's what triggered the mic, taking it off him, and you getting this weird of me looking at the wall and then coming back like confused because I didn't know what was going on. Well, it turns out if you were tuned into last night's show, if I would have turned the camera about that far, you would have been able, right on the other side of that wall, there was somebody ODing on heroin. Why do I bring this up? I live in a shitty city called Fall River, Massachusetts. Massachusetts as a whole is in the grips of a huge opioid crisis. Me, myself, I don't do that shit. Not a fan. Not even a fan of like taking medications based on opiates because the shit makes me sick to my fucking stomach. All right. But don't do heroin. That's pretty much what the point of my fucking story is. Like, to me, it's kind of funny because they Narcan that bitch and she walked out of here, I guess, and got in the ambulance to go to the hospital. But like, whatever. Don't fucking do heroin. Don't. Like, don't. And definitely don't do fentanyl. Yo, I'm sorry your friend passed. I did not know that, Don Pell. I'm sorry for your loss, homie. You should be on board with this. Don't do it. I mean, I know if you start, it's hard to get off, but don't. Don't. It's sad. It's a terrible situation. Like, I can't be mad at people. I mean, I think you're stupid that if you do that shit. I mean, that's the thing, though. If we're going to talk about it for a second, we might as well talk about it for a second. I'm older than a lot of you heads. For my age is not a secret. All right. I'm an old cat. I spent my 20s doing something else. So I have a weird segmented life. Yo, shouts to Joseph Edwards with that $2 super chat. Drugs are bad, okay? They are bad. But like, I'm an older cat. And when I was growing up, a movie came out called Trainspotting that had the dude who would later become Obi-Wan Kenobi in it, and Spud and fucking Renthrough and whoever the fuck. It was a Scottish flick about a group of people who did heroin. And it was like, after I watched that shit, I was like 16 maybe. We went to some independent movie theater to see this fucking movie. If you've never seen it, you should check it out. It's called Trainspotting. And just seeing that movie, I swore up and fucking down that I would never, ever stick a needle in my arm. Ever. Ever. Like, straight the fuck up. And I can't see that if you watched that movie, you would later become a heroin addict. I can't see that. Like, I really think they should show that movie to young kids and be like, yo, don't do heroin. Because who do you think's like, that's the reason. The reason heroin's like the fastest growing problem as far as drugs right now. Like, heroin took the place of crack cocaine. Easily took the place of crack cocaine. Now, if you look at history, okay, in the 80s, when crack cocaine sprung up and crack became a problem, We later down the road found out for fucking sure that the CIA was importing cocaine and had introduced crack cocaine to inner cities and urban areas. We know this for a fact now. This is not this conspiracy theory. This is a fucking fact. We know the CIA, it's in court records, that the CIA introduced crack cocaine and high fucking value, high potency regular cocaine, powder cocaine, to inner city urban areas in the 80s. Okay. Now, our country took over Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was one of the it still is the largest poppy and heroin producing countries in the fucking world. Okay. All of a sudden, heroin use in this country spikes and the availability of heroin goes through the roof. You think that's a fucking coincidence? Like, if anything, you shouldn't want to do heroin because you shouldn't want your money to essentially go to fund black operations that our government is doing. Because it's my fucking opinion that our fucking takeover of Afghanistan is a direct correlation to the amount of heroin that's coming to this country. And then on top of our fucked up pharmaceutical system, where we have shit like fentanyl, which why we need something that's fucking 1,000 times more powerful than heroin, I'll have no idea. But they're producing this synthetic that's fucking, that like, if you touch fentanyl, you might OD on it. Cop here who found some fucking heroin on somebody, touched a little bit in the bag, and there was so much fentanyl in it, the cop OD'd. Like, from touching it. Should the pharmaceutical companies be making fucking synthetics that are that powerful? What the fuck do we need shit like that for? For real. And then we're finding out, I mean, there was a hospital in New Hampshire. The head of the hospital just went to jail or is going to jail because they found out he's been ordering large supplies of fentanyl and then allowing it to be quote unquote stolen. You know what I'm saying? And these companies that are producing this fentanyl, who are probably in cahoots with the government bringing in the heroin, are the ones that are paying for all the anti-legalization weed efforts in certain states. If you follow the money trail of any organization that's fighting against legalized medicinal or recreational marijuana, if you follow the money trail, it always goes back to a pharmaceutical company. Always. Like, straight the fuck up. Yeah, fentanyl. Yeah, Jen. Fentanyl laced in weed. Why would you even do that? Ain't no stoner I know trying to mix heroin and trees. Like, it's one or the other usually. You know what I mean? I don't see, like, it's distasteful to me. And it's a cultural issue being perpetrated by our government in some form. Like, straight the fuck up, think about it. We take over Afghanistan, which is like heroin town. And now heroin's the biggest problem we got going on in the States right now. Like, I'd love to say, Mass has got the worst problem. We had an HBO special, which is true. HBO had a special about heroin addicts on the Cape. But this is not a Massachusetts problem. This is a problem every place. Now, obviously, the further you get into certain sections, the less of a problem it becomes, but it's still a fucking problem. And it's bullshit. So, there's that. That's kind of a bummer. I fucking know. But, hey, I think you're all adults. I think you can handle a little bit of fucking Chuck Reeves beard truth about the shit.